Hi, my name is Tara Tondo, and I'm here to share my story with you today. Before I get into any details of my story, I want to ask if you're wanting to and willing to participate in a 1 minute, I guess we can call it exercise. And what this exercise is going to do is hopefully give you a glimpse into what my life was like living with mental illness. And so, if you're up for it, I'm going to set a 1 minute timer. And in this 1 minute, I just want you to do something super simple, okay? All I want you to do is tilt your head down and stare at the ground, stare at the floor, whatever ground floor you have to look at. And so, if you're up for it, you may begin. And as you stare at the ground, you may be having some thoughts that come into your head, like, what am I going to do for dinner later? Or who's going to pick up the kids from school tomorrow? Or maybe you're just having the thought of, why exactly am I staring at the ground right now? But humor me, I promise, it'll make sense. We're 25 seconds in. 30. Just keep staring. 35. 40. Kind of feels like an eternity, huh? 45 seconds. 50. Almost done. And done. Okay. Now I want you to tilt your head up. Look up. Look at everything there is to see in your view right now. Take it all in. And know that you don't have to just stay with this view. You can leave and see another and another. And at any point, you have a whole entire world to see. And maybe this brings up a feeling of contentment or peace, maybe even hopefulness. Whatever it is that's coming up for you, notice it. Take it in. Feel it. And now I want to ask you, what was it like just staring at the ground for that minute? Can you see yourself staring for 5 more minutes? What about an hour? A week? A week where all you did was stare? How about a month? A month where your life just consisted of staring at the ground? What about a year? A year, 365 days, where at every minute of every day you just stared down at the ground. How does that feel? How small and how small and insignificant does your life become at that thought? I ask this question because that was my view. That was my world living with depression. I was diagnosed with depression in 2011, and my depression was so mentally and physically debilitating. It took every ounce of energy I had to the point where all I could manage to do was just lay on my couch and stare at the floor, specifically this carpet in my home. And as I laid there, so much of life passed me by, so many milestones I wish I could have made for myself, and so many events I wish I could have attended. And things like hanging out with friends and going to school and getting my driver's license and spending holidays and birthdays with family and doing things fun and that I enjoy, like going to concerts or musicals, even something as simple as just walking my dog around the block. I couldn't do any of it because my depression literally made me unable to. I describe my depression as a heaviness, and it's a heaviness as if every ounce of Earth's gravity was forcing and pulling me down, down to just lay there on the couch and stare. But my depression didn't only just steal my sense of living and my ability to function, it stripped everything that made me me. I'm a very talkative, lively, bubbly person, but my depression made me so unbearably numb to the point where I couldn't even talk anymore. And because of this, I decided to get help for my depression pretty much right away. Over the years, I saw a few therapists and as well as a psychiatrist. And with a psychiatrist, I tried over 50 different medications for over 10 years. Just the constant process of taking a medication, hoping it gives me some sense of relief, it not, and then trying another and another and another 50 times. And I I was willing to do this. As frustrating and difficult as was, I was willing to do it because I didn't want to settle for the life I was living because to me it didn't feel like living. I was existing to survive and nothing more. But about 3 years ago, I hit a point where I was like, okay, maybe medication is just not the answer for me. So I then looked into getting two treatments done for depression. And I got these done. And as you can guess, these didn't work for me either. So I became extremely hopeless. And I want to preface this by saying that when you put all your hopes on something only for them to be dashed and you to be left disappointed again and again, it gets so much harder each time to have that ability to have hope for yourself to the point where you can't even see it anymore. And this is what happened to me. So I not only became very hopeless, I started struggling with suicidal ideation. And because of this, I decided to check myself into a residential treatment center. And here I was hoping to gain a sense of safety because my loved ones and myself were concerned for my safety, and also just gain a sense of mental stability. And so on my first day, I was to meet with a psychiatrist. And I was kind of cocky. I was fully ready to be like, okay, look, doc, like, I understand, like, you have good intentions and you're going to want to put me on all these different medications. But as you can see from my chart, I've been on so many different ones. And I just not even sure if if that's the answer for me. So if you could just not give me any, I'll be out of your hair in a few weeks anyways. Okay, sound good? So I walked in fully ready to do my little spiel. And I remember this conversation clear as day. I walked in and the psychiatrist was sitting across from me. And I sat down and he said this to me. He said, you know, Tara, I noticed in your chart that you have a folate deficiency. And most people don't know this, but folate actually breaks down to serotonin. And so I'm just theorizing here, but if your brain had the inability to create the serotonin it needed, maybe that's why medications never work for you. I'm sorry, what? I was stunned. I was literally stunned. I could not believe the words he just said to me. I didn't fully know what he was talking about, but it made sense. And I literally just sat there speechless, thinking in my head, oh my gosh, was I just given a miracle? And I can honestly say that I was given a second chance at life that day. Because with the combination of the folate and an antidepressant, my depression, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, lifted almost completely within 5 days. 5 days, and I could talk, I could smile, I could laugh, I could feel again, I could experience real human emotions again. And I felt lighter and even happier. Well, happy because I wasn't anything, but I felt happy and I literally was so excited to leave residential and like take on the world and make all my goals and dreams and to gain back everything that I lost from my depression. I just was so excited to finally live the life that I felt I was meant to live. And I had this incredible zest for life. And this lasted for about 2 weeks. Because 2 weeks later, I was diagnosed with complex post traumatic stress disorder, complex PTSD. And with complex PTSD, I finally realized why my depression had to be so numbing, had to be so extreme, had to be so severe. It was because it was suppressing an underlying trauma that I had no awareness or even memory of. And this trauma occurred in 2010, a year before my depression started. And this trauma was that I was violently sexually assaulted. So, with this realization, I started having a trauma response that is known as tonic immobility. This is where the body goes into an immobile paralysis collapsed state. I'm not going to get into all of it, but simply put, our nervous system has three states. We have safety and connection, which is where we socially engage. We have fight or flight, which is what most people are aware of. And we have freeze or shutdown. And the freeze or shutdown state is the play dead response in possums. Yeah, possums. Yes, humans can experience this too. It is very much a real reality, and it was mine. And so I'm going to show you a really quick clip of me going from a flashback into a paralysis episode so you can see exactly what occurs for me. As you can see, my eyes are glazed over, my body has gone completely limp, and I am unable to respond by either talking and or moving. And these paralysis freeze episodes of mine can last anywhere between 5 minutes to an hour. And they started occurring up to 3 times a day. So, once again, I was unable to function. I was unable to live the life I wanted to live. And all on top of that, I had to wrap my head around a brutal truth of what happened to me. And so I became very hopeless again. And I just said, you know what? I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I literally just survived a 10-year long battle trying to get my depression under control. And that was like the fight of my life. I didn't even know if I was going to survive. And you're telling me that I now have to wrap my head around this trauma and walk onto basically another battlefield? No, no, I can't do that. So I became suicidal again, and I thought to myself, okay, you really only have two options here. Option one is you give up, you end it all. I was so tired of fighting. Did I even have a fight left in me anymore? And the second one was this. I told myself, okay, but what if you did get your paralysis episodes under control? And with everything you've gone through and everything you go through, what if you still managed to live a life that felt meaningful and purposeful? You could then go to someone in the exact same state that you're in and say that you can say with absolute certainty that it is possible to live a life worth living, even with a mental illness. And so I chose option two. And I can honestly say that I have never felt more happier and grateful that I chose to stay. I still struggle. Healing is hard. It's really hard. And my paralysis episodes, as I described, are now down to once a month, but there's a lot of life I can live in between those trauma responses. And so, lastly, I want to say is I unfortunately cannot tell you when or even how things will get better. But I can promise you that if you keep going, if you find that ounce of strength within you to keep going, you will discover that there is beautiful life and light to be found even in the midst of your darkness. I know this to be true. And I can't describe or express how amazing it is to live a life you've always wanted for yourself, and all while knowing that you were so close to not being able to witness it. I want to say, please keep going so you can witness that for yourself too. Thank you so much for letting me share my story with you today. It's been an absolute honor. And thank you to NAMI. Take care.